Okay, here are your notes for section 5.3. We're still working with inequalities, and it's asking you to solve and graph the inequality, but now we're going to add two steps to it. Instead of just adding and subtracting or just multiply and divide, you are now going to also have those steps combined. So we'll just start right away with examples. If you have 3x minus 7 is less than 8, the idea is to get the variable isolated, get it by itself. We always want the variable on the left side of the equation so that we can match up our graph. We're going to add 7 to both sides. All adding and subtracting comes first. Whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. You have 3x is less than 15. Still working to get our x by itself, so you divide by 3 and divide by 3. You're dividing by a positive number, so everything just stays the same. X is less than 5. And we'll have you graph them. Give me at least 3 numbers, one smaller, one bigger. Reminder, it's an open circle because there is no underline, and it is pointing left in the same direction your less than sign is. So this part is review. You've done this before. You've actually done this before, but it was an equation. It had an equal sign instead of a less than sign. But we're just going to practice it some more. Get really good at solving equations. This one has an even extra step. Part B, or example B, because you need to use the distributive property. Go ahead and pause the video if you need to get this written down. And we'll start with distributive. 3x minus 15 is less than or equal to 15. That's step 1. Step 2, now we're right back to either add and subtract on both sides of the equation. So you have 3x is less than or equal to 30, and when you divide by 3, x is less than or equal to 10. Throw 3 numbers on the graph, 10 and 11, maybe 9 as well. Solid dot this time, and the solid dot comes from the underline, and you're going less than. X is less than or equal to 10. Remember, write this down again if you think you'll forget, otherwise you already know this. If you multiply or divide by a negative, you must flip the sign. A less than sign becomes greater than. A greater than becomes less than. Same with less than or equal to. So just a reminder, we don't have to do this whole problem. You don't have to write it down. But if you divided by negative 3, you would then take this sign, flip it. Because the number that you're showing the work, the number that you're dividing by on both sides is negative, you flip the sign. Just a quick one there, we're not going to graph it. And we'll also skip part D. We'll just do it quickly, example D. Remember, this is a division problem. Don't panic, it looks like a fraction, but you treat it like division. If you're dividing by negative 4, you would multiply by negative 4 and cancel those out. Because you're multiplying by a negative, you must flip the sign. It doesn't matter that your answer comes out positive. That has nothing to do with it. The fact that the number you multiplied on both sides was negative is why it came out positive. And again, we'll skip the graphing on that. Oh, was there a part E maybe? Just checking. Oh, there is. Example E. Go ahead and pause it, write this one down. This one we'll do the whole thing and graph it. 3 minus x is less than 2x plus 6. We're going to want all of our x's on the left side of the equation. So what we're going to do is move this negative 2x over here by the x. Because it was positive, we make it negative. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. Drop down your 3. Negative 1 and negative 2 is negative 3x. Is less than 6. Be careful on your next step. I see this way too often from too many students, a common mistake. This is a subtraction problem, but your 3 over here is positive. Because your 3 is positive, to get rid of it, you need to minus it. Minus 3 to both sides of the equation. You now have negative 3x is less than 3. One more final step. When you divide by negative 3, you have a final answer of x. Don't forget to flip the sign, and 3 divided by negative 3 is negative 1. Quick graph, make sure your numbers are going in the correct order. -1 is an open circle, and we're going to the right. Open circle because of the greater than sign. More examples. Go ahead, write this one down, try it all by yourself. Pause the video, work it out, then turn it back on, look back and see if you did the problem right. Okay, you should have paused it and figured it out. I'm back. Now you're going to do -2x to both sides. You'll have 4x minus 7 is greater than 17. You then add 7 to both sides. And yes, I'm going through this quickly because you should have already solved it. You're just checking to see if you did it right. Divide by 4, divide by 4. X is greater than 6. Throw a few numbers, open circle, going to the right. And this will be one of our biggest problems yet, because it does have 4 steps to it. Take the time, write it down. Example G, 4a minus 3 is less than or equal to 2 times 4a minus 5 in parentheses. We're going to drop down the 4a minus 3 and the less than or equal to so that we can distribute 8a minus 10. Now it looks just like the other problems that you had. We're going to get the a's on one side of the equation by minusing 8a over here. Let's always get our variables over here on the left. 4 minus 8 is negative 4a. Minus 3 is less than or equal to, don't lose your negative. Negative 3, negative 10. Add 3 to both sides. You get negative 4a is less than or equal to negative 7. Okay, divide by negative 4. Dividing by a negative, you get a. Flip the sign, divided by a negative. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, and we don't want decimals. So leave that as a fraction. This is okay for an answer, but this is super tough to graph. So perhaps you want to change your answer, make it a mixed number, and turn it into 1 3/4. If you have a mixed number or a fraction on here, you do not put fractions on your number line. Number lines still get whole numbers. So you have to decide, where is 1 3/4? It's between the number 1 and the number 2. If you need 3/4, you need 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. Go ahead and cut your space between 1 and 2 into 4 equal parts. Close circle over the 1 3/4, and we flipped our sign to greater than or equal to, so we're going to the right. That's the toughest one you'll see, not only because of the 4 steps, but also the fraction. 2 left. Example H. Now we have variables and we have like terms, but they're on the same side of the inequality. The 5k and the 4k are both over here. So we're going to just drop the 18 where it is. 5k plus 4k is 9k. Oops, that's not a k, that's an x. Okay, we're still going to keep solving it. Divide by 9 on both sides. And 2 is greater than or equal to k, which is totally fine. That's an okay answer. It's an okay answer. This is legit. The problem comes in when you try to graph it. I'm afraid you're going to graph it backwards, and we talked about this when we did our other problems, is that if you're graphing this and you know that it's going to be a solid dot over the 2, you'll have a tendency to graph that the wrong way. You should reverse the order of your inequality. Variable comes first. Then you know that this is a less than sign, and less than goes to the left. And finally, the last one, example I. Again, it does have variables on, only has variables on one side of the equation, but it has numbers on both sides. And we can combine like terms. Go ahead and write it down. 9 is greater than or equal to. negative 2m plus 2 minus 3. Combine these two terms. Plus 2 minus 3 is negative 1. So we have negative 2m minus 1. We don't do any adding or subtracting to both sides of the equation until we combine like terms. Now you can add 1 over here to the 9. And you get 10, which is greater than or equal to negative 2m. Divide by negative 2. Divide by negative 2. A positive divided by a negative is a negative, but because you divided by a negative, you have to flip the sign. Your 2 is negative. So we have negative 5 is less than or equal to m. Throw a couple points on the board. Negative 6, negative 5, negative 4. You know it's a closed circle. Either rewrite it or just be careful with it as it is. You know that you have to go this way because m has to be greater than or equal to negative 5. All the greater than numbers go this way. If you don't like looking at it like that, then rewrite the entire equation in the reverse order. Whoops, in the reverse order, so that your greater than or equal to sign matches the arrow going to the right. That's it for your notes for 5.3. Day 1. Day 1. There's 2 days of 5.3. But that's good because that means I slowed it down, broke it up, and am giving you a little bit more chance to grasp this. Good luck.